Welcome to our partner, King County Parks, bringing you Earth Deserves More Than a Day. It's me, Tony B, and welcome again to this 5-day, 6-day event, Monday through Saturday. Got a bunch of stuff going on for you. You can check it out on the website. One of the highlights in particular is the Friday noon panel discussion with our elected officials, and we'll hear how the folks who you voted into office are taking your considerations into their decision making if you made your vote based off of climate justice and environmental justice. Well, if not, then you'll have an opportunity to hear how your elected officials feel about that. And hey, don't forget, on Friday from 5:30 to 7:30 is the closing ceremonies. We'll have everyone back here who was on a panel, and the artists and folks who've been involved in putting this together, just getting together to celebrate from 5:30 to 7:30 right here at the Columbia City Theater. It's absolutely free. There'll be performances from a Marshallese community, from the Vietnamese community, from the Khmer community, and some other special surprises for you as well. So a lot going on this entire week. Right now, I'm going to turn it over to our panel for our next discussion. And this is a discussion entitled How Climate Justice Ties In with Systems of Oppression. This panel will be facilitated and moderated by Clara Cantor. Clara.
Thank you so much. We're so happy to be here. My name is Clara Cantor, and I'm a community organizer with Whose Streets Are Streets. And I'll let my teammates introduce themselves as well.
Hi, I'm Dee Hyla. I am also a community organizer with Whose Streets Are Streets.
And hello, my name is Maria Abando, and I also organize with Whose Streets Are Streets. Thank you, Clara, and thank you. I'm just really excited to be here.
I'm so excited to be here talking with you. Let's just start off with a little bit more of an introduction. What got you involved in this work with Whose Streets Are Streets?
I can start. I think what really got me started organizing with Whose Streets Are Streets in particular was really looking for a space where I knew that my perspective, my energy, sometimes the thoughtful critiques that I bring up, in general, my energy would be valued and uplifted and respected. And I am grateful to have found that in Whose Streets Are Streets. Whose Streets Are Streets being a space that uplifts Black voices, uplifts people of color's voices in our organizing spaces, has been something that's been really, really meaningful for me. I do have a background in organizing. I have been organizing probably since I was in middle school. I'm from Tacoma. I've done a lot of organizing in South King County and also in Seattle. But a lot of the organizing that I've done, it was voting justice organizing. It was electoral organizing. It was labor justice and minimum wage organizing. And a lot of that organizing was in predominantly white spaces. And when it comes to climate justice as well, a lot of folks, I think, will take a look around in the city of Seattle and say, a lot of this organizing is centered in whiteness and focuses on uplifting white voices in what white people think makes our streets and our communities safe and healthy. And so I had done a lot of that. I had been in a lot of places that I just felt tokenized, where I felt that I was there just for my face, or there just to check a box, or there to, just capture my energy kind of. And in Whose Streets Are Streets, I really, truly feel that I'm able to be honored, respected, valued, and be at the part of, at the table where decisions are being made. So that's what got me involved with Whose Streets Are Streets. And I'll also add, this is not necessarily a choice. I think a lot of folks feel that what we are doing because we have to. if we want to keep our community safe, we have to, right? If I don't speak up, then who will, right? So I got involved with Who Streets Are Streets, looking for spaces that really align with those values and capture that energy in a helpful way. So yeah, say that.
Nice. So I'm Dee. I got involved. I'm gonna say how, and then we can go into why, right? So I got involved because Ayan introduced me to KL, who is a big advocate in the space in the Seattle, and she brought me into WSOS. Not knowing I was not an experienced organizer, I did not know much about this at all, and I was open to learning because I knew what I wanted to do was continue to advocate for change, make sure we're in a better space for everyone, and be able to be in those spaces where my voice can be heard, and eventually get to the point where I'm able to get other folks in to get their voices heard and make sure that we're making real change and moving forward, honestly. And I like to really focus on getting youth into these spaces, just because I know as a young person myself, I didn't know these spaces existed, but these problems affect me. And so for me not to be able to know about what decisions are being made for me, it doesn't work out in the long run, right? So I believe that my job is to come spread awareness, let our young folks know so they can pave the path forward, because come on, we're the future. So yeah, and I think I've definitely enjoyed what I've learned so far. I think I got to see a different side of the world, I guess you could say. I feel like we live in the same, we're in the same vicinity in totally different universes. Like our realities are so different. It shows. And I'm hoping we can bring them together.
That's really beautiful. I love that.
Thank you.
What about you, Clara? How did you get involved? Because you've been teaching us too. So
yeah. So I came at Whose Streets Are Streets from transportation advocacy, which I also sort of fell into a little bit. I was working as an artist for many years, and I had always been working in community advocacy in some kind of way ever since I was younger. But I was a lifelong bike commuter and sort of fell into transportation advocacy and safe streets advocacy, and have just learned a tremendous amount since then. I've been doing that about 7-8 years now with Seattle Neighborhood Greenways. And I think I had a little bit of a similar experience to what you were talking about, Maria, where, a lot of transportation specific policy and engineering and urbanist spaces in Seattle can be very white dominated and very wonky. And I really appreciate being in Whose Streets Are Streets, where the respect and the camaraderie and the tone of the organizing is very different than what you see in a lot of white spaces where, there's a lot of emphasis on the agenda and getting things done and the timelines and the outcomes that we're doing and the numbers. And there's less emphasis on the people and the community and the trust sometimes. And that's one of the things I really value about Whose Streets Are Streets and the way that we organize as a group. So we've talked a little bit about Whose Streets Are Streets, but let's actually get into what is Whose Streets Are Streets? Who are we?
I guess I can start it off. We are a BIPOC group focusing on safety, our public streets, making sure these spaces are not reserved to white climate activists. So I believe that our main focus is bringing community together and making sure that we are also given the same help, given the same treatment of our streets, and we're also bringing awareness to our communities that don't know about what's going on, like a few of the things that we worked on as far as like surveillance, street cameras, all these things. Our main goal is to bring it right back to the community, know what's going on in your community, in your backyard.
Yep. And then also, I think along with knowing what's going on in your community, because Dee's absolutely right. These, our leaders, our electeds, they are often making a lot of decisions, and it often takes some really intentional effort to find that information about what decisions are happening and what legislation is coming down. We all know, to be able to have a voice in those processes, to show up at the meetings, to testify or comment on legislation takes effort, usually in the middle of the workday, that a lot of working folks can't do. Usually with a very specific, like Claire, like you've been saying, specific manner and way of engaging in business that is usually excludes folks who don't have that exact language or don't know exactly the exact system and process of how these decisions are made. And so I really, really appreciate that Who Streets Are Streets is educating folks on what is going on, and then also giving folks that opportunity to have a voice and giving folks opportunity for action as well, to do something about these things as well. And why is that important? Because we know when climate disasters happen, who is going to be the most vulnerable? Right? It is going to be folks who are poor. It is going to be folks who are differently abled, folks that are elders, folks who are youth and don't necessarily have immediate access to the things that they need. It is folks who are incarcerated right now. It's folks who in general are a little bit farther out from where the hubs of resources are. I think a lot about how Who Streets Are Streets doesn't just encompass folks in Seattle, but we also include folks all the way down to Tacoma and up and down along the I-5 corridor as well, because we do know that it's going to take a little bit more time sometimes for folks to be able to access resources in a climate emergency. And so when we know who is most vulnerable, we know who has been excluded from the decisions. We know who has literally been physically pushed out of certain spaces because of there's a whole history there of redlining and gentrification that makes it so that people don't have access to resources. We know those are the folks who are going to be, most vulnerable and who's going to need support and help the most, and who needs to be educated on things and who has the knowledge about what they need that needs to be reflected in our legislation. So I really, really appreciate that piece of Who Streets Are Streets of education, knowing what our community knows, and then also being able to give opportunity for action along these things.
You know what I also love? I feel like when you were saying, and the other spaces, your main focus is what? Climate, right? And you don't really see folks coming outside of that. And honestly, like, climate affects every single thing that we're doing. So I don't understand why. Anyways, let's go.
No, I love that. I love that for sure.
Yeah. So what I do love about what WSOS does is we connect these spaces because we know how it affects everyone. And so when I'm walking into a space not knowing much, I know that I know my experience, and my experience is valued because I am living and working on these streets.
Mm-hmm. Yep. We have said this before. Climate justice is gender justice. Climate justice is disabilities justice. Of course, climate justice is transportation justice. We've talked about this. Insert a type of justice. Climate justice is absolutely that. And that is why it's so important to have that anti-racist lens that we have, that intersectional focus on everything that we do. It's a great place to be able to put our energy towards.
I love that. I'm going to transition us a little bit to defining some of those terms. So like when we're talking about climate justice, what does that mean to you? You segued us beautifully.
To be honest, I think my definition of climate justice has transformed a little bit over time. I think, I'll be honest, I was a biology major. So I think I fell into thinking about my environment, the built environment, the natural environment, the climate for quite a while. I was always a Pacific Northwest girl. And so I loved, just understanding, the natural environment around me, the forests, the tides, the water. It's a beautiful place to be. And when I was growing up, I always had this hope that our leaders would turn things around for us. I think I never knew a moment in my life where climate change wasn't a thing, and where we weren't, like, from being in elementary school, like knowing about greenhouse gases and knowing that our climate was changing. And there was this feeling, there was this, like, if we just get it together, if we just turn things around, if we reduce our emissions, we have a chance, we have a future, right? And I'm not saying that I'm not hopeful about that anymore, but I think it's clear to me that the effort, at least for me, has transitioned a little bit, because it's clear to me that our global leaders are not focusing on this, right? Like, they are caring about dropping bombs, and they are caring about how to send packages as fast as you possibly can. And they are caring about how can you make the most capital possible while, off of the backs and off of the bodies of the people who are poor and vulnerable, and honestly, Black and brown folks across the globe. There has been no shortage of young people speaking up about this. There has been no shortage of people of color speaking up about this. Actually, white people have been speaking up about this for a long time as well. And I don't think that there's more data that is needed. I don't think that there's more research that is needed. So I honestly got a little bit annoyed at a lot of climate justice movements. And in order to—
A little bit annoyed.
Yes. And in order to be able to find myself in a climate justice space, I needed to have that intersectional lens, but then also shift my focus a little bit to climate resilience in community, because it's clear to me that the leaders are going to keep doing what they're doing, and that the impacts of that are going to continue to be felt. We are already seeing it: wildfires, flooding, natural disasters that are unprecedented, right? So to me, in this moment, what I can do in the climate justice movement is focusing a lot on resilience, on how do I take care of my communities and the communities that are not being thought about, when our policymakers are making these decisions. And I'm kind of to a place, I say this sometimes, where policymakers fail, the people will prevail, right? And it shouldn't have to be that way. It should not have to be that way. And that's why we are bringing the people to the policymakers to really tell them more and more. But on the other hand, having to do that other work internally. How do we make sure that our communities get access to air conditioning and heat pumps? How do we make sure, that our communities have the funds and the money and the access to the roads and things that they need to be able to survive in climate disaster? That, to me, climate resilience is what climate justice is looking like right now. And honestly, I wish it was different, but I'm standing 10 toes down at what I'm doing, is what I'll say.
I will say, before I joined WSOS Climate Justice, if you were to ask me then, I would have probably told you, I don't know, probably the global warming, like all the fires and whatnot. So the idea of climate justice wasn't there for me then. And now I will say what I've learned now, it's I want to say it's bigger than that, right? Because when you focus on what exactly is happening on these, you will say smaller issues, when in reality, these are the big issues, because it's causing all this injustice through the way of living on this earth. And it's, I think climate justice means to have justice for your way of living, to be able to exist in this world healthy and resilient, and you taking care of your place. And it's not, yes, it is actually. I was about to say it's not the global warming, but it is. And I'm just not there yet. Let's focus. I'm focusing on our neighborhood right now, making sure the community's right. And I feel like for a long time, I did not know how much it was affecting me. Why when you go to certain areas, it's not kept up. You'll see trash everywhere. But when you go to a certain other area, it's so nice, and people talk about how they like this area because it's nicer, it looks better, and we didn't even talk about why it looks like that. Why? Because you can't try to say, "Oh, yeah, just pick up your trash and it'll be better." No, it's not by chance or whatever. It's definitely designed on purpose to look that way. And it's just, it ain't right.
I hear both of you using the word resilience, and I love that, especially Dee, when you were talking about focusing on your neighborhood and on your community and the people that you immediately know and interact with. I feel like I have kind of two different directions I want to go on this. And one is, when I think about resilience and community resilience, the first thing that comes to mind is just like knowing your neighbors, and building a community for yourself where the people around you and you trust the people around you, and you can, drop the kids off somewhere and know that they're in good hands, or like, if you have some leftover cake or whatever, you can like share it with some other people who are going to enjoy it. If you, have a bumper crop of tomatoes, you can like
cup of sugar.
You
Neighbor.
Joke, but it's important.
Yeah,
that is resilience, because if I run out of sugar, like, what am I going to do?
Yeah.
I need to have a backup option for like the things that I need in the world. And if I know my neighbors, I have a community that's going to support me and help me with the things that I need, whether it's a cup of sugar or something much bigger, And I think that that's really important when we're organizing in any capacity. One of the things that we touched on a little bit earlier with Whose Streets Are Streets that I think of a lot is we spend a lot of time really intentionally prioritizing our own internal structure and skill building and supporting each other to learn and practice those new skills and learn from each other, from those of us who have more experience or can share some of the history of our movements and our past organizing. And that's resilience too, because we're intentionally equipping ourselves and and younger organizers with the skills that are going to be needed to continue this struggle for decades and for generations. And that's resilience too. I just think that's such an important part of our organizing in any capacity, whether we're talking about climate or transportation or any of these specific things. One thing I thought of, Maria, when you were speaking about our global resilience also is when we're talking specifically about Seattle, we do have fire season and we do have some poor air quality now, but we are in one of the lushest, healthiest climates in the world. And we here in Seattle have a lot of climate resilience kind of built into our environment, and the fact that we have so much rainfall and so much greenery. And as we're talking about climate refugees from around the country, from around the globe, but also political refugees now, I think that we're talking about a lot of queer and trans folks who are moving around the country right now, trying to get out of red states where they're feeling much more threatened, and other folks who are, running out of water in other parts of the country, having wildfires, destroying their homes, things like that. Part of how we're building our city and our resilience is being able to accommodate more people here. And if we're not able to do that, that's a real lack of resilience that I think we're struggling as a city to set ourselves up for in a lot of ways, in terms of housing, in terms of transportation, in terms of, our services, our education system. And we really need to be thinking bigger about all of those things because they are all climate issues.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Climate justice then does become, yes, this is housing justice. Yes, this is economic justice. And, Claire, I'm not sure the city is doing a great job of seeing that and recognizing that. I think it's clear just from the vast socioeconomic inequality that and the amount of folks who are housing unstable right now, that there's a lot of work to do in this space. And it's also, I think, someone told me that a budget is a moral document, right? And if we were to look at our city's budget, and if we were to look at our state's budget, and the things that are being prioritized, I would question the morals of those leaders.
We are going to pause there for a couple of minutes and take a quick break.
Rainier Avenue Radio. Rainier Avenue Radio.
The Washington State Nonprofit Conference is the largest gathering of nonprofit professionals in the state. Visit nonprofitwa.org to learn more about this powerful gathering of leaders, employees, board members, and nonprofit supporters. You can join May 13th and May 14th in person, or May 16th in Spokane, or May 20th in Tacoma. With 30 workshops, 4 keynote sessions, and 4 distinct learning tracks, the Washington State Nonprofit Conference is an incredible opportunity to connect with experts and discover resources and strategies to drive positive change in your organization. Ready for action? Register today at nonprofitwa.org.
Welcome to the Fitness Corner. I'm your host, Mark Bryant, and you're going to get a whole total body workout on my show, starting off with a warm-up, aerobics, strength training, cool down, and stretching every Friday from 11:30 to 12 right here on Rainier Avenue Radio.
Atlantic Street Center has been serving the children, youth, and families of the Seattle-King County area since 1910. We partner with families and communities to raise healthy, successful children and youth through services including counseling, early learning, youth development, domestic violence, and education support for school-aged children. Committed to serving the African American community, Atlantic Street Center provides services and support for all marginalized people. Learn more at AtlanticStreetCenter.org.
Women are not an homogenous group. We face discrimination differently depending on factors such as ethnicity, age, socioeconomic status, and more. Rainier Avenue Radio is proud to amplify women's voices.
They are the experts of their own lives, initiating conversations within their community about challenges they face, the solutions they're working on, and the opportunities they see.
Please join us this Sunday from 2 to 5 for Women's Voices on Air. We know our challenges. We are the experts of our lives.
We are master multitaskers, prioritizing our family, friends, and our faith above our own needs.
Our needs and voices are too often overlooked.
Please join us this Sunday from 2 to 5 p.m. for Women's Voices on Air.
We tell our stories in our own way.
Sing with us as we fill the historic Columbia City Theater with our voices. Join Crowdsource Choir on May 23rd for a soulful, participatory night of singing. Come raise the collective vibration with us at the Columbia City Theater. Tickets at crowdsourcechoir.com.
You know you can't get enough of Rainier Avenue Radio. .org.
We've been talking around it for a little while now. How does climate issues interact with racism and other systems of oppression in our world?
We have been talking a lot about this, but let me see what I can distill. You know, I think racism is at the core of this, Clara. I have a hard time being able to pull climate justice out from issues of racial justice. Not even just because of how we've been talking about how much communities of color are often pushed out and often most vulnerable and impacted the most in these spaces, but is exactly what Dee was bringing up as well, that when we're talking about space, and I think when we're talking about our natural environment, our built environment, if there is humanity, there's always going to be people trying to control those spaces and have power over those spaces. And those spaces include resources. And so having control and power over those resources, I want to say that I think our Indigenous communities have done and have always been attempting to educate everybody who, at least in the Americas, who comes and, all the colonizers and the folks who have settled on this land, to try and talk and educate even when they shouldn't have to, on ways that we could steward this land and share this land in a way that is healthy for all of us. But boom, I think as soon as colonization hits, our land becomes not something that we continue to care for and that we see as something that's a part of us and with us and alive alongside of us, and becomes something that people decided to claim, people decided to control, and decided to say these resources belong to this group and not belonging to this group, right? And so I think it goes as far back as that. But of course, to bring it a little bit more to today and to bring it, here to Seattle with our beautiful, lush, wealth of natural resources here, it's the same. It's folks who have laid claim to the space and who have said, you have access to this and you do not. And that goes all the way, how we were mentioning redlining, the history of exclusion in neighborhoods systemically that way, and goes all the way up until now, where I think the city of Seattle is doing things like putting forth a bunch of surveillance technology and putting forth automatic enforcement cameras and certain areas where certain types of people are excluded. All of those things to me are rooted in saying people are allowed to be here, but people are not allowed to be here. The resources that we have can be here and not here, right? And through all of that, when I'm saying these people, we know who that is. We know who that is. That is power that was usually claimed by white folks and that has been used against communities of color.
You know what this question reminds me of? They bombed a whole city that was it was the projects in Philly, right? So you're telling me you bombed a whole city of Black and brown folks and destroy the world, right? Not world. Let me not do that. But I'm saying you destroyed a whole neighborhood because you felt like it was that disposable to where you can bomb a whole bunch of people in a whole neighborhood that people called home. And you're going to tell me that there's no system of oppression in the climate? You're wild because you can't. And so I feel like it starts from that. If you went as far as that, and okay, let's bring it in for now. It's like we've always been pushed to the sidelines. Like when someone, if you've seen this video, it was wild. So someone was an older white man was telling this girl, she got it on video. He was like, "Go back to Tacoma, where you're from." And mind you, this is Fremont, Seattle. So if that's and I'm not basing everything off of what he just said, but that's an example of how we continuously get pushed and pushed and pushed to as far as Tacoma, right? Because you're from Seattle, but you got pushed to Tacoma, and now you're gonna sit here and tell me go back to Tacoma like it's supposed to be this this wasteland. And that is not what I'm saying, but the way that how that's being used is insane to me. Like,
I know. Come on now. I'm from Tacoma, so it's not even that. And there's a lot of white folks in Tacoma, so come on.
Come on now. But you know exactly what he was saying when he said that. And that's the point. Yeah. And it's like, what?
Yes. And to keep on with that, when folks do get pushed out and pushed out of the spaces that are like the cleanest and the nicest and have the most resources, where do they get pushed to? And I'm not saying this is Tacoma, right? But I'm saying the areas that are more highly polluted, the areas that intentionally have, trucking routes going directly through them, or that have highways going directly through them. I am from Tacoma, but now I live in the CID here, and I look out my window and I can watch the cars on the highway go by, like just for fun, right? I also have asthma, so we're going to see how that's going to play out. But I think it's important to recognize, why is Chinatown International District so close, right there to the highway? How did that happen? There's a history there.
And when they're talking about gentrification, what does that look like? What is, no, truly, please answer me this. What does it look like?
Gentrification, that one can look like a lot of different things to different people. I will sometimes say, okay, like you'll notice it. You start to see the artisanal donut shop like pop up in this historically.
The price of a slice of pizza.
yeah. You know, those kinds of things. But what we see is when we see housing become way too expensive for people to be able to afford to live there. Even folks who have lived in the space for generations, who have purchased their homes and had it for a long time. We see folks not being able to afford to continue to live in their communities and end up getting pushed out. And I think there's a lot to be said there around rent control and other prescient topics, but it does definitely, that's where you see that racial justice continue to intersect with economic justice and housing justice for sure.
And I just want to add to that, as people are displaced out of their communities where they are pushed further away, and then they have to be commuting back in to get to their jobs, to get to their communities, their churches, their friends and family, their services, they're suddenly happening to commute way further. Oftentimes they're pushed out away from where a neighborhood is transit accessible. They're no longer able to walk and bike to where they're trying to get to. And that's a climate issue also, because you know, transportation and our car dependency in our society is a huge percentage of the climate emissions that we have in Seattle. And we're forcing people to have to do that by car as we're displacing them outside of our city. And so when you're talking about when we're talking about building freeways over top of people's homes, that's done intentionally in Black and Asian communities, the CID and Central District. When we're talking about neighborhoods that get more expensive and people getting displaced, we're not just talking about losing their homes. We're also talking about losing that access to a walkable local community where they have people that they trust, where they have resiliency, where they have places they know they can go to get services and resources that they need. And that's a climate issue too.
Yeah, I think like, okay, so I used to live in Seattle, right? And we got pushed back to Auburn. And over the years, I've seen how there's more Black and brown folks coming to that area, right? And the more that get pushed out there, the less they take care of that city, the less you see maintenance, and the worse it gets. And then it gets to the point where it's like, oh yeah, that, and then the label is something so different. Because I remember when I was living in Auburn, it used to be like, oh, there ain't no Black people there. What? That's just like basically nowhere. And now that they done pushed so many of us out, and there's more over there. Oh yeah, Auburn is just not. It's not safe. It's ghetto. It's this. It's that. Oh.
ND, can you take the light rail from Auburn? You got a light rail?
No, you got to take the bus and then to go to Kent and take the other train to get to Seattle, and then you can possibly take the take the light train.
But you could take it in Redmond now, to get to Seattle, right? So I'm so with y'all on that, and I think Clara, and that's such an important point that is being illustrated by Dee as well, that the very, I think, well-meaning but often misplaced efforts by like white urbanists, white transportation justice advocates will be, well, let's just put more taxes on gas, and let's just make it more expensive with fees and fines and things to be able to drive on the road. Let's do more red light cameras. Let's do more, automatic enforcement and things like that. Let's just make sure that we're putting, more police on the streets, or more police on our buses and things, so that it feels safer for everybody who can use these things. Let's make sure that we're adding more bike lanes, which I'm I'm not against adding the bike lanes, but it's a whole separate conversation, 100 reasons why a lot of Black folks can't ride their bikes to work. And a lot of it is in distance, right? A lot of it is exactly what we're talking about, rooted in this exclusion, systemic exclusion that is done purposefully and done without a lot of people's voices at the table like ours.
Yeah, and I think it's sad to see that in a lot of these situations we kind of just get to building back up and not even trying to focus on why it happened, how it got this far, and why the system is intentionally doing these things. It's like, oh yeah, we lost our house in Seattle, so we're just, you know what I mean, we're over here now. Well, we just got to make it happen here. And I understand you have to make do with what you got, but we also need to start speaking up for ourselves. We can't continue ignoring the huge problem. It's like, but I also truly do understand where you don't have the capacity to focus about climate justice when you're barely making ends meet, when everything is against you. It's not something that you can focus on at all. And what we can do is support in those areas and make sure that this that they have a little bit of capacity to start worrying about these things, because honestly, I feel as though it's a privilege to start thinking about climate justice. It's a privilege to work towards it, because when you have your basic needs met, you're not gonna be able to only focus about those things, right? So if I'm like, okay, I my whole world is basically revolved around making sure my kids eat, having a roof over my head, going to work. Girl, I'm not gonna be worried about what lane changes you're talking about. What lane bikes, huh? Oh well, I just gotta take 5 buses to get to work. I don't know what you're talking about or care. But when we do have those people that can speak up for our communities and make sure that you don't have to take those 5 buses. Actually, let's try to bring it down to 2, maybe even 1, or let's get the train over there. It's just, yeah.
I feel that.
I'm going to bring us full circle here and bring us back around to talking about what this actually means for us as Whose Streets Are Streets in terms of our work and what we're doing, and how folks can learn more and get involved. So let's just talk about what we're currently working on right now and how we go about doing that.
Oh, we just did the transportation justice youth-led listening sessions. We got yeah.
Why is it important for youth-led spaces?
Because we are the future. Okay. And that's funny because we were just talking about, we also do a host. So with MLK and WSOS, we collaborate together on transportation justice, and we hold weekly circles with youth, right? And for the month of March, I was doing that every week. And what I heard a lot was how I think one conversation that we went into that was super important was like, a young person said, well, how do we get the light at the bus stop? Because it's dark, they can't see me. And then how we had to connect that to climate justice and making sure that they're in spaces to advocate for themselves to get that done. And so with that event, there was some Metro folks there, King County folks there, listening to these young people present and run the show, because they need to, you know what I mean? Like we are making these huge decisions that affect them directly. Because maybe I have that $2.75, but you might not. And I get it now that we made it free. Yes, that's a step forward, right? But there's always going to be more. And the sooner they know, the better the outcome. Because if we start now, it's going to be better than starting tomorrow. And yeah, it was great. Honestly, what was that? The transportation justice listening session. So I think, and also they had the council. I don't know, but some Metro person was there to answer the questions that the youth had. So they were able to get quick answers on the spot. You don't have to do much to look it up. Also, being able to navigate how to get certain resources. Having that direct access is super important, because when you have to take 1,000 loops, you're not going to go.
Yeah. I also feel that there's a lot of young people who cannot vote.
Oh, yeah.
Right. And so, and they don't have a whole lot of say all of the time over how they get from A to B. So absolutely, that was so important. And I didn't personally get to attend that event, but yeah, I'm grateful for y'all and glad that space was there. And then another thing that kind of reminds me of as I'm thinking about young people not necessarily having opportunity to have a say all of the time. Another thing that Whose Streets Are Streets has been working on, not just this year, but for the past few years, has been something that I've mentioned a couple of times, the City of Seattle's automatic enforcement cameras. Okay. So these are the cameras that the city, the SDOT and the city have throughout our neighborhoods, that are the cameras that flash when you are blocking the bus lane, or when you supposedly don't make that full stop at the red light before you try to take a turn, allegedly. And then also those school zone cameras, those speeding speed cameras that are supposed to trigger and flash and take a picture in school zones. And when those are in school zones, those do impact young people, quite a bit. They are supposed to be aimed at keeping young people safe. And I think what we have noticed is that there are a lot of things that we can do to keep our community safe and keep young people safe in the built environment itself, to not just punish people from speeding, but also prevent people from being able to speed in the first place. And what we're seeing is an approach that is more based on that punitive aspect of it, of punishing people when they make that mistake, and that punishment is a very high cost, right? These tickets are over $200 in the school zone spaces, and that money is not going directly back into community to make the actual streets and the built environment around the schools safer. We're seeing that this thing be a revenue generating system that is taking money off of the backs of working people and going to disappear into the general fund instead of actually going back to make the streets safe. And I know a lot of young people, I know a lot of actually people across generations that are frustrated by this. And when we have legislation that's supposed to be aimed at keeping us safe, we would like it to actually attempt to keep us safe and not just punish people when they make poor decisions that can put people in harm's way. So that's one of the things as well that we've been working on.
And we did a lot of tabling. I think also to tie back to what you were saying, one thing about WSOS is how it's communal, right? And I think we have, the past year we were at damn near every community event, tabling, trying to educate the community, getting surveys done, and just showing up and being present in the community. We're not in the backgrounds trying to do whatever we're doing. No, we're here with you. We are together.
Yeah, I think that's a really important thing to emphasize about our work, is that we really are very community driven. We're out in the community all year, talking to people at community events, but also inviting people into listening sessions or smaller events that we're hosting where we can have deeper, more engaged conversations with people, get feedback on the things that we're talking about, do some education about some of the big issues that we're seeing come through our city and the decisions that some of our legislators are making. And when we advocate for change, we're depending those decisions on all of that community outreach that we've done and the things that we've been hearing from folks about the things that most concern them. And we're directly accountable to the community in responding back to them as well. And I think that's so important as a way to root ourselves and remind us who we are actually advocating for. So even as we're in City Hall trying to talk to City Council members about the automated enforcement legislation that's currently being discussed and bringing folks with us to be able to share their opinions and views, we are bringing the whole community with us in that space.
Yeah. So Claire, what is this legislation that we're we're kind of coming around just to hone in on a little bit of it? What can we expect down the line for automatic enforcement? Maybe these school zone cameras and things that I've been mentioning.
I don't want to get too wonky here, but there's a legislation that City Council Transportation Committee is discussing right now. That's basically an umbrella policy over all of their traffic cameras and automated enforcement cameras that are used on the street. And like Maria was saying, this is speed cameras, it's red light cameras, when you're blocking the bus lane. There's a number of different programs that Seattle has, and they all have different rules and different policies and different ways the data is stored and different fine amounts. And up until now, it's been very hard to understand from the public and even from someone, within the department. It's hard to access information and how to figure out what's actually going on. And so the umbrella policy is a good thing. And we've been pushing for the city for many years to increase the data privacy protections and the transparency of how these cameras are used and when and why and how they're removed if they're doing their job, and how we're trying to make them strictly more about safety by being kind of a temporary measure instead of something that's just perpetually out on our street fining people. We would rather it be funding speed humps and stop signs and things that are going to slow people down all the time, 24/7, for much less money and much less process. We are seeing some things in the current legislation that we're pushing back on. The revenue is not going 100% back into Safe Streets projects right now, which is a big problem, because if we're using this as a revenue generator for the city, that money could be going to fix potholes and other things in SDOT, but it could also be going into the general fund and funding our police or other kinds of programs across the whole of the city. And as the general public, I think if you receive a speeding ticket for speeding in a school zone, and you know that money is going to be going to the city to make school zones safer for kids, that's a much easier it's a much easier thing to acknowledge and realize, I did something wrong. I was speeding in a school zone, and now I'm going to pay money so that kids can be safe in school zones. And if that money is going into the general fund, that's totally eroding our public trust in the system. It's totally eroding the purpose of the program to begin with. There's a number of things that we're pushing back on in that enforcement, in that legislation right now, but that's one of the big ones, I think. We have just a few minutes left. Do we want to talk a little bit more about how folks can learn more or get involved? We have also been working on, Maria mentioned surveillance earlier. We've been working with a group of folks called Surveillance City around public exclusion zones the new soap and soda laws that passed last year.
Sure, so some of us in Whose Streets Are Streets are also working with a group called Stop Surveillance City, which is a group that formed out of the Seattle Solidarity budget. And we are also taking a look at equity and safety when it comes to more types of legislation like automatic license plate readers, CCTV, which you'll see throughout now in Chinatown International District where I am. It's everywhere, right? And then also real-time crime centers that are supposed to be trying to use technology to predict when crimes are supposed to be happening, which isn't very effective. And a lot of these technologies are, where we're worried, are more aimed at criminalizing folks, finding ways to continue to exclude people, and are not actually there to keep communities safe. And so that is part of the work that we are doing with Stop Surveillance City.
And you can find us on Instagram or Facebook or our website at Whose Streets Are Streets. So Harry, go ahead.
Yeah. And I think that we are, with Whose Streets Are Streets, are going to be continuing to have events. So you'll definitely want to sign on to the mail list so that people can figure out when those events are and figure out the action alerts when there's action, because we definitely will need folks to help us with our advocacy in pushing for policy, pushing for progressive revenue that isn't going to be, again, taking revenue off of the backs of working people in the city, and working towards equity in our city as well as safety.
Yeah, thank you so much, everybody. If you want to learn more about Whose Streets Are Streets, check out our website. It's our-streets.org. And I think we are coming to a close. Thank you so much. Do you have any last final words?
Thank you for having us. I just hope to see everybody around in the streets, learning, engaging with these things. Reach out if you want more information.
Whose streets?
Our streets. Yes.
Thank you all for coming. We really appreciated you having here, and your voices and your leadership. Thank you for being here. You have been listening to day one of Earth Deserves More Than a Day. We're going to keep this thing going all week long. We'll be back tomorrow. Tomorrow is when we're going to do our Duwamish River Tour. The good news is all the spaces are filled. The bad news is all the spaces are filled. So we can see that there is interest from our community in taking this tour and learning more about what's happening in the Duwamish Valley. So we're going to try to figure something out so that we can get more people involved. And if you want to take this tour, have you take this tour with us. Also, can you put that back up, Daniel? I'm taking a look at that. Tomorrow, we will have a special show in Tagalog from our Philam radio program. That program will be airing, what is that, 12:30, I believe, 12:30 to 2 o'clock. You can definitely check that out. Daniel, can you put the schedule back up there, please, for tomorrow? That's 12:30 to 2 o'clock, I believe. And then we will also be having a performance, and we're going to be checking in from the Duwamish as well. So that's going to be about 3-4 hours that we're out at the Duwamish. And we'll be checking in. We'll have a tour guide. We'll give you some updates and information about what exactly is taking place at the Duwamish, what's wrong, how they're fixing it, if they're fixing it. And yeah, and then again, at 4 o'clock, El Sueño, Alicia Mulligan will be here with Indigenous Aztec dance. So performances tomorrow as well. And then Daniel, can we do Wednesday? Let's show Wednesday, if we can get Wednesday up as well. Give folks a heads up on Wednesday. Equitable and accessible outdoor spaces will be starting at 9 o'clock on Wednesday. Then at 10 o'clock, we'll do the morning update. Lavera Brown will be joining me. At 11 to noon, mitigating climate change through a stable local food system. That will be the Urban League and the Black Farmers Collective. Then at 2:30, co-building resilient and inclusive communities. Again, another panel. I think that's the City of Seattle Sustainable something or another they call it. And then also Monica Wilson will be here on that panel as well. And then Healthy Earth, Healthy You. That is a panel that is the Washington State Department of Ecology will have some folks here. So, and then we've got Thursday. Thursday night is Youth Night, a youth panel discussion and a bunch of things going on that night, including tabling. And then Friday, again, a lot of panels in that on that day as well. And then Friday night at 5:30 to 7:30 or 8 o'clock will be our closing ceremonies. And we're hoping to get everyone back here who's been here all week to just network and have a good time. And then on Saturday, taking purpose to action, we'll be at Skyway Park, opportunity to do some cleanup and some other things as well. That's from 9 to noon. So just a whole week of showing the earth some real love. You know, like if I could do Mary J. Blige, I would, but I'm not going to do that to you. So thank you again for tuning in. We will be back tomorrow at 10 o'clock right here on Rainier Avenue Radio. Very special thanks to our partner, King County Parks. And again, shout out to Who Streets? Our Streets. That's it. That's all the time I have. That's going to do it for the kid. It's me, Tony B, saying, remember, whether you believe you can or not, you are probably right. I'm out.